Good morning and welcome to the show. Today, we're not tackling a question, but rather, we're going to look at a proposition, and that is why Nigerian businesses should hire sales and customer service experts. So, the scenario, of course, relates to me, and that's the tradition over here on the podcast whenever I come up with one of these rants. So, I had a failed transaction with a bank which shall not be named. Nigerian bank, by the way. If this is your first time of listening to the podcast, my name is Tawishima. I'm Nigerian, and the whole point of this podcast is to show how selling principles can be applied concretely to whatever business context or situation that you're dealing with at the moment, especially for a Nigerian audience, since a lot of these things are made in the North American and in the Western European context. So, this podcast is a nice and healthy way to show how these principles are universal and also apply to the Nigerian experience as well. And today's rant or today's scenario is going to be a case in point. So, a failed transaction on the 1st of March with a Nigerian bank. At the time, we happened to be going through, the cold is not over yet. So, at the time, we happened to be going through the the Naira redesign project. Let's see what else. Naira redesign project, currency restrictions, things of that nature. So cash was hard to find. Lots of people had to resort to transactions online. And for years, people had been talking about how the IT infrastructure of not only Nigerian banks but other institutions were not up to scratch. That's assuming that you had to stress test them that they wouldn't pass. Let me just put it that way. And so this was a very basically this was just a shit show. Forgive my swearing. To show how a lot needed to be done to improve our banking infrastructure. Basically, where overnight, if the central bank mopped up all of the money supply, and then we had to cope with online transactions. It was an interesting doomsday scenario. Let me just put it that way. So, where was I? Okay, yes. So, lots of us were having failed transactions left and right, and so I had one on the 1st of March. I tried logging it, phone calls not going through, WhatsApp inquiries not being responded to, emails not being responded to. So I did what any other person my age would do because, we like to take to Twitter and rant. So I was really angry. I was going to go to Twitter and I was going to rant about the crappy service that I had received. And surprisingly, there were hundreds and hundreds of other people who seemed to be going through the same sort of thing that I was. So that kind of it lessened my enthusiasm to join the rant. So I just sent them the customer service team a message on Twitter, giving the details about the transaction and asking where else to seek redress, since phone calls not going through, WhatsApp messages not going through, emails not being responded to. And I sent the message, and then that was it. That was on the 1st of March. Now, eventually, my what's it called? What should I call it? My outreach. Okay. Anyway, so my message on Twitter was acknowledged and responded to on the 3rd of April. The emails were not responded to. The WhatsApp messages were not responded to. But at least the Twitter team got back to me on the 3rd of April. Remember, I made this report on the 1st of March. So 3rd of April, a month. That's when they got back to me. And they asked for the details and what happened? I can't remember if it had been reversed by then or if I was still pissed, but basically I just ignored it. And then I received a customer service request for rankings or ratings, a survey, those sorts of things on the 2nd of May. So let's go back to the timeline. It's March, April, May, 1 month apart. The problem happened on the 1st of March. They acknowledged me on the 3rd of April, almost a month later. And then they want a customer service. They want me to give them some stars on the 2nd of May. Now, what's wrong with this scenario? Well, obviously, there was a massive delay in acknowledging that things had gone wrong. Now, I know that this was a national problem, and so all banks were going through these sorts of issues. But still, I mean, this was really a massive delay. I mean, a delay of 2 or 3 days would have been bad enough, but then a whole month. In fact, by the time I received the Twitter response, I had forgotten that I actually lodged the complaint on the 1st of March. Then, apart from the massive delay, there was no later contact to confirm if the problem had been resolved. There was also no apologies because, after all, well, at least in the Nigerian context anyway, when you hear customer service, you know that that is the department that is responsible for calling people up to apologize for what it is that happened. At least in the Nigerian context anyway. If you hear customer service equals apology. So, no apologies. And so, even though we have a bunch of negative experiences that have been left unresolved, for some reason, they are asking me for reviews after a bad business experience, after a bad brand experience. Now, what do we think the result of these sorts of things are in the Nigerian context? Now, I'm still with this bank because I think we have no real alternatives, because over here there's this perception that all banks pretty much are the same in Nigeria. Maybe the branding is different, but there's this thing that, well, all banks are the same. Okay, maybe Sterling Bank, because Sterling isn't Nigerian, it's a South African bank, South African International. Yeah, okay, let's call it South African Bank. So Sterling Bank is a South African bank. So, okay, well, yeah, they seem to be different. So all banks are the same. Difference with brand positioning. Older folks like my parents like banks of a certain generation. Younger people like banks of a certain generation. But they're pretty much all the same. So no difference. So I'm stuck with this bank because there's no real alternatives. I'm not going to move my deposits somewhere else. But there's something really interesting. I've noticed that the younger customer base have no affinity for traditional banks. And I notice this because for the wedding photography side of the business, because I still take wedding enquiries, I don't shoot the weddings myself anymore. I have a team that handles that. These guys and girls are much younger than I am. They're tweens. I think that's what they're called. Teenagers up until early 20s. I don't think anybody's above 30. So let's just say they're all tweens. So I've noticed that these tweens all have really interesting bank accounts. For when I have to make payments, there's Kuda Bank, there's OPay, and all these other things that Nigerians call online banks. I haven't done any research into them, but I just know that there are banks that don't have physical locations. Everything is done online. Supposedly, these banks are really good at processing payments. And when we were going through this shitstorm with the Naira redesign, supposedly these banks are very, very efficient with payments, and so the people who are customers there did not have these sorts of issues that those of us who are with traditional banks face. That's those of us that use banks that have buildings and have locations, places that you can walk into and shout at someone if you have a problem. So, what was I? Oh yeah, so the younger customer base has an affinity for these sorts of banks, and I suspect that over time, the market share of the older banks that have buildings where people like me can go into to shout at a customer service person, I am assuming that they're going to lose market share as the demographic change in Nigeria goes on. Those of us who are much older, we will still remain with these banks. I think because we like the security of knowing that my money is with this bank, and this bank has a building on this street that is open from 8 to 5, and I can go there anytime to talk to someone. I think we like the comfort of a physical location. But I suspect that with the change in demographics, and if this kind of customer service culture persists, people might actually prefer to opt for these online banks, especially if they seem to be secure and they're well regulated. Anyway, so why hire a specialist? With all the things that we've spoken about so far, with the scenario and with the changing demographics over here in Nigeria, I think it might not be a bad idea, not only if you run a bank, but no matter the business that you run, I think it would be a good idea to hire a sales and customer service expert, because those customer retention is our thing. You have customers, you don't want the customers to leave, and that is because, one moment, I have to cut off this fall. Okay, all right. Now that's one of the disadvantages of recording podcasts with your phone. Anyway, where was I? Okay, yes. So customer retention is our thing. So customers are expensive to market to, and so when you get a customer for your business, you want to make sure that they stay with you for a long time, so you can maximize lifetime customer value. So that's our job, making sure that people don't leave you and go to your competition. Now, we it's also a good idea to hire sales and customer service experts because we fix gaps in customer success and we fix the customer experience. Remember, those of you who are old listeners of the show, new listeners, welcome on board. We have over 611 episodes so far, all juicy, interesting stuff. So when you're done with this episode, feel free to go back to older episodes so you can catch up on all the conversations that we've had over the course of the last 3 years. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So we fix gaps in customer service and customer experience. So customer success is the idea that if anybody does business with you, you want them to have achieved their brand promise. So in buying your product or your service, you would want them to feel that if you promised that they were going to get XYZ, that they did in fact achieve XYZ or more. So where was I? Customer success, and customer experience. Yeah. So anyway, that's our specialty. We make sure that customers get exactly what it is that they want, because we own the relationship with the customer. Okay, take for instance the banking staff, the tellers. Okay, tellers have experience with the banks, but just with the banking customers, but that's just a limited scope. Management, okay, they don't do any customer service facing thing at all. Maybe they interact with other stakeholders, but people who work with the at the customer service desk, I mean, they're the ones that have a much broader view of how it is that the bank relates to its customers, and it's the same for other business. So, customer service experts, sales experts, we're the ones that have a wider picture of what the real relationship with the customer is. Well, okay, well, at least we see what the worst experiences are, and we know the gaps that need to be plugged. Now, if you work on customer retention, that means clients are staying longer, spending more money with you, increase lifetime customer value. The business as a whole is going to have an enhanced performance because you're making more profits. If you fix the gaps in customer success and in the customer experience, they stay longer, they do more transactions, you have enhanced performance. So you're going to have better reports to give to your investors, to your stakeholders, to your family members. If you're a one-man show, then enhanced performance means you have money for school fees, for inverter batteries, for holidays abroad, or for sending money back to the village, or whatever. So, bottom line is, by hiring sales and customer service experts, you're going to increase your business fundamentals, the profit and loss, the red and the black, whatever it is that you want to call it. You increase the fundamentals. So, sales and customer service experts, we are not a cost to the business, but we help to drive profits. And then, of course, we can also help you to appeal to new audiences because we're the ones on the streets, we're the ones with our ears to the ground. We're the ones with our ear to the customers. So we know changing trends, changing experiences, and we're going to be able to advise you appropriately when you start seeking out a new market. Now, is this a problem with Nigerian banks? The answer is no. If you've been listening, is this a problem exclusively of Nigerian banks or the banking sector in Nigeria? The problem is no. This problem happens in every single country all over the world, different industries, different contexts. So it's not just a Nigerian thing, and it's not just a banking thing, because I've had similar experiences with my wife trying to buy groceries, for instance, from meat vendors online. You face these sorts of issues, acknowledging that there's a problem, notification about late deliveries, follow-ups where stuff missing or maybe damaged. What else? Dispute resolution, resolving issues where the business says they did things one way, and the customer thinks they did things another way. So all these shortcomings are there. Whether we're dealing with banks, or whether you're trying to buy meat over the internet, or you're trying to buy kids' pajamas with from someone over on Instagram, you name it, it cuts across. So that's the reason why you, dear listener, whether you own a bank, whether you sell meat over a website, whether you sell pajamas over Instagram, or even if you're a wedding photographer. Of course, I always include wedding photographers because that was my early constituent. That's where I started my business journey. So no matter what it is you do, these are the reasons why. You need to have a sales and customer service expert. Okay, maybe not on speed dial, but you need to be able to reach out to one. And these are the massive benefits that you're going to be able to get as a result. So that's it for today. I decided to make the rant more positive since for my previous rants I usually go down hard on whatever business it is that I am talking about. Okay, so yeah, we've gone over 15 minutes, so let me bring this to a close. So remember, you can subscribe for free because the majority of you are still listening to this show over on your web browser. 30% of you are still listening over the web browser. I find that really, really surprising. Haven't you guys heard of mobile phones? Isn't it difficult to whip out the desktop or the laptop every single time you want to listen to the show? So subscribe on your mobile app will make it a lot easier. The show is Sales for the Nigerian Business Person podcast. You can subscribe on Spotify, on Google, Apple iTunes, Pocket Cast, Anchor, Overcast, or any podcast player of your choice. Remember to share with your friends, family members, associates, and maybe even your enemies, because your enemies also deserve a chance to improve their business. So share if you like what you're hearing on the podcast. And yeah, so that's it. I'm your host, Tafishima. And yes, my name rhymes with Hiroshima. I'll see you guys at the next episode.